Although with Rushmore and Tannenbaum's, we've always had like a classical reference. This was the first real departure into electronic instruments at all. Although I do a lot of the original composing of the score on a computer, we've never used a non-acoustic instrument in any of the scores until this movie. This was the first time, and it was the whole Wolodarski thing that did it.
Let's try track 3 against picture.
I wrote some themes that were for the movie inside the movie, just with the all synths the first time you'd hear them. And then later on, when things became real, there's music that you'd originally heard as synth sounds that start off with orchestral instruments. Wes said, I want them to sound as much like Casios as you can. So that became an interesting exercise. Okay, I want you to sound like a cheap Casio synthesizer. Players the day before, they were probably playing on a James Horner movie, and maybe the day after on a John Williams. The idea was to have the orchestra sound as small and electronic as possible, and then by the time they're going across the field, it's kind of changed over to big orchestral sounds, playing the same music that had come out of Casio sounds earlier in the movie. What was nice about it is it created adventure music that didn't sound like it came out of another movie. It had both a classic feel, but yet it was very unique to the universe that these people were floating around in, you know, this kind of fantasy world of Wes's. We listen to music together. We recommend pieces to each other. He picked pieces that he said he wanted me to listen to. In the last 3 films, there's been something classical that was kind of a reference point, and we deconstructed it from there. In Rushmore, it was Vivaldi. Vivaldi has kind of operatic and dramatic kind of connotations to it, and kind of a nice energy that fit kind of the twists and turns of the film. With Royal Tannenbaums, it was French Impressionist. A little more sophisticated, and things like Ravel and Satie. With this movie, it was our good old favorite German bee composer. It introduces the L'Aquasto Festival. The first 10 bars come out of the world of German music. He liked this piece because it sounded like a film festival. It had a festive pomp and circumstance kind of feel to it. And goes into when the little boy with the crayon ponyfish is introduced by William Dafoe.
This is my little nephew Werner. He wanted to meet you.
It goes through a little bit of Tyrolean folk music or something.
A crayon ponyfish. Wow.
By working on all 4 of his movies, I've had this wonderful chance to watch him grow as far as his musical knowledge and his sophistication. So I think the instrumentation for each of the movies, starting with Bottle Rocket on, I think they've grown as Wes has grown. We used a few woodwinds and strings in Bottle Rocket, and we added on to that when we did Rushmore, because we were listening to Vivaldi and kind of upped the symphonic nature of the orchestra. I remember when I did Rushmore, I was thinking, from my previous experience with Wes, and it was only my second movie, I already knew that he didn't like instruments that played lower tones at the time. At that time in his life, he liked higher frequencies. I found out on Bottle Rocket that he liked mandolins, he liked piccolos and flutes, celeste, because celeste had another connotation for me. I thought of celeste as Mr. Rogers and kind of wrote it off, and he made me think about celeste and harpsichord. walking around here, you'll notice now I own 2 or 3 celestes and I own at least 3 harpsichords, but we'd still not used brass. And the reason we hadn't is because he didn't want to open his musical universe up that big. He didn't really want a brass sound. But on Royal Tannenbaums, I remember putting a trombone swell. Wes goes, "What was that?" when he heard it the first time. I go, "It was a trombone."
Look at that old grizzly bear.
We started putting brass in a few here and there, and by the time we got to this movie, and so we've kind of pretty much added a full orchestra to our repertoire now, so I think sky's the limit for the next one. We still have never